In a world of 350 billion movie podcasts, two chumps have decided that now is the time for cult movies to engage in combat. Disagreements will be had, blood may be spilled, and voiceover artists most definitely will not be paid. This is Cult Film Face-Off.
Hello and welcome to Cult Film Face-Off. With me, as always, Chet Roivas.
Hi.
And I am Nick Leonard. This episode, we have a battle of the lycanthropes. 1981 saw the release of arguably two of cinema's biggest werewolf movies. First up, we have Joe Dante's The Howling. News anchor Karen White has a near-death encounter with a serial killer and is sent to a remote hilltop commune where all is not as it seems, and she must fight for her very survival.
The Howling. Somewhere in the city.
What do you see?
What's there, Karen?
What do you see, Karen?
What's there?
Somewhere in these woods. In this primal, sensuous, secret place lies an experience too terrifying for words. The Howling.
Okay, so The Howling.
Yeah.
Have you seen The Howling before?
Never seen it. Loved the. Saw it many times as a kid walking around the video shop. It has an amazing. The poster is excellent. It's got a gorgeous poster, but I never saw it. I suspect that it's more of a cult film in America than it is in Europe, because it's not one of those. I don't think I know anybody who's seen The Howling or any one of the numerous sequels. But no, I'd not seen it before. Had you?
No, I hadn't seen it before. No, and obviously knew it from all the sequels. And speaking to people as well, it's like not many people have seen The Howling.
No, they haven't. No. For a cult classic, even I know a lot of people who are really into horror films. They haven't seen The Howling. The Howling's kind of sort of, in this country at least, I think it's probably more of a cult film in America than it is over here. But what did you think of it?
I like the fact that it starts off as a straight up legit thriller.
Yeah.
And that there's no kind of hint in the first half an hour. Like, how are werewolves going to be incorporated into this story? And I quite like the fact that it's kind of got that slow burn.
Yeah, right.
I like the fact that it focused on the TV station and the kind of it touches upon the kind of internal politics at the TV station. I really like Kevin McCarthy as head of the network.
Yeah, just
the Freddie Francis character. Freddie Francis being a head nod to, I think, Hammer Horror Amicus director Freddie Francis.
Oh, well, yeah.
So there's a lot of nods in The Howling. That was one of the first ones I picked up on. Is that the guy?
Was that the character's name? Freddie Francis?
Freddie Francis.
Isn't Freddie Francis a cinematographer?
Could be a cinematographer. Okay. I know that he's definitely done Hammer films.
Yeah,
whether he's a cinematographer or a director, I'm not sure. Maybe, but I've definitely seen him on credits for Christopher Lee Dracula movies at Hammer.
Yeah.
So that was one of the many head nods. I like the fact that it has that whole referential thing going on. That there's segments in the movie where the Wolfman is playing. I like that. Character-wise, Patrick Macnee, whenever Patrick Macnee pops up in anything, I'm like, okay, I'm in. And he was really good in this.
He was very good at playing Patrick Macnee, I'll give you that.
Well, Patrick Macnee's very good at playing Patrick Macnee. I don't think he has much range.
No, he has no range.
But he was really good, you know. It goes into the commune. It's got that whole Wicker Man-esque cult vibe going on with it. It's got some really good, left of field character actors in there. Another one of the Carradines pops up as the old drunk kind of suicidal dude. Yeah. And then the very sexual vampy girl that ends up kind of snaring
Dee Wallace's girlfriend.
Dee Wallace's boyfriend into a really uncomfortable sex scene. That, what I have to say, once again, that played in an inopportune moment when I was on the Southern Rail Uckfield to London Bridge, and this time I was watching it in the morning, and I was sitting down with there was 13, 14-year-old girls sitting in the other seats, and that came on, and honestly I could feel the claret rising into my face. And then they got off literally when that scene ended. I was like, is that me? No, it was just they were getting off of their stop.
That would be an awesome story if they were like, I'm so offended by this.
I couldn't even look. I just looked by and saw the carriage was emptying out of all school children. So I was like, I think I got away with it.
Whenever I watch anything on the train, I'm so tilted into the window that nobody can possibly see me. That there's no danger.
No, I was far too brazen.
So did you like it?
I didn't dislike it. I was prepared for this to be so inadequate compared to American Werewolf in London that I was actually pleasantly surprised that it's quite a well put together film.
Yeah,
I mean, Joe Dante went on to better things. Gremlins is a better movie than this one. Mm-hmm. I kind of like it's got tones of being quite dark. I mean, this serial killer with all his drawings and how kind of he's got quite a twisted cat. That was quite interesting. The transformation sequence.
I'd heard that. I think the story was that whoever did the special effects on American Werewolf in London, was it Rob Bottin? Did he do those special effects?
No, I think Rob Bottin was the Howling,
and he was a protege of
the guy that did the special who did the special effects in American Werewolf in London, which is Rick Baker.
Rick Baker.
So he was like an apprentice of Rick Baker.
Right. Yeah. But I'd heard that these two, if for film fans, it was kind of either one. Like some people thought that The Howling was better, some people thought that the American Werewolf in London transformation was better. I don't think there's any contest.
I don't think there's any contest at all because what separates it for me in that scene is why American Werewolf is such a powerful sequence is you are being a voyeur into this guy transforming. Yeah. There's no character watching that happen, and he's in pain.
Yeah.
He's in agony, which is what you to buy into. You would go, yeah, you would be in absolute pain with your jawline and your feet becoming. It would be horrific pain.
Yeah, no doubt.
You don't really get the pain from the transformation in The Howling. You get a very bubbly head and really bubbly, and you get a girl who's just taking it all in, and then waits until the wolf is transformed before she then chucks a load of acid on his face, which is just a bit dumb. Yeah, it was stupid.
But it's also, I mean, like the American Werewolf, I think it's even now it's still pretty bracing to watch, but. The Howling is like, it's very squibby. There's a lot of vibrating squibs in the head. Like you said, it's bubbly. It's like, for several, I mean, probably the best part of half a minute, you're looking at someone with squibs violently going underneath the latex skin. So I don't think there's any contest, but American Werewolf in London had a budget of $10 million. The Howling had a budget of $1.5 million. So you can tell that what they did the best with what they had. The smaller budget for me means that The Howling is. I was expecting a werewolf film, and it's not really. It's like people go to an area or a village or a commune, and things aren't what they seem. That's what it is. It's not really a werewolf film.
No, it's more of a thriller with elements of werewolf in it. Yeah, it's not a straight up werewolf movie.
No, it's not. I think it's got a reputation as being a werewolf film, and it's not really that at all. I do think by far the best part of the film is the first 10-15 minutes where it's about a serial killer.
That's interesting because you get a general feeling that Dee Wallace is really unnerved by what has happened, and the whole snaring of that guy is really engaging.
Yeah,
that's like a thriller.
Yeah, but the scene where she actually is in this, she goes to go and meet this guy in like a porno booth in a magazine shop that sells pornography. And the shot's just locked on her while this guy is and it's really uncomfortable, and it's really effective as like a horror movie sequence. The rest of the film, when it becomes this sort of slightly werewolf movie, it's really hokey. It's like you'll see someone walking through a forest and you'll see a claw.
It's got the hokey fog.
Yeah. And then a woman backing against a wood shed with a hatchet, and then the werewolf's hands come. It's really hokey. It feels like a Roger Corman film in that it's an engaging story for about 45 minutes, and it tries to be this big explosion of activity, and it's not really. It's because it's so cheap. But I don't dislike it. One of the problems with this film, I think, is that if you read reviews from when the film came out, there's a glowing review from Time Out London, like 5 out of 5, a glowing review, and it says that it riffs on. The problem with reviewing a film that came out in 1981 is that if you're not there, you don't know what it's riffing on, and you don't know how stale the horror genre is.
What's going on in the melting pot at the time.
That's what I mean. So when they're talking about how subversive it is, how it seems to be taking the piss rather than just adhering to sort of genre tropes. I don't know. I will say this, considering the fact that American Werewolf in London is very, very broadly known as a horror comedy, and The Howling is known as just a horror, there are probably as many successful jokes in the Howling. I mean, I laughed.
Oh no, I was gonna. There's loads of gags.
Yeah. Really, really effectively funny jokes. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think Joe Dante's a really playful director, and in Piranha, Gremlins, there's tons of in gags and very referential about. That's what he does. I mean, Dick Miller. Whenever there's a Joe Dante film, Dick Miller is in that film.
It's him and Robert Picardo. Like, they're his Joe Dante's boys. I think they were in every one of his films until I think Dick Miller passed away. I think that's something I will say about this film. There is a really great roster of great American character actors in it. You've got Kevin McCarthy, Slim Pickens,
What a name! What Slim Pickens?
Yeah.
What a great name!
Yeah, no doubt. But it's a really, really great cast.
Dennis Dugan, who arms himself with silver bullets, and takes and basically ends up wiping out. Spoiler alert! Who ends up being the man who saves the day? Do you know what he went on to do?
But isn't he? Hold on, Dennis Dugan. I know that name. Isn't he a director now?
He directed mostly Adam Sandler films. He did Grown Ups, Big Daddy, and Happy Gilmore.
Is this definitely the same guy?
100%.
Okay. Well, that's good for him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not an esteemed career.
He had such great promise.
Yeah, he didn't strike me as I don't know what he was doing in like a film like this. He didn't seem like he did not seem like an actor. But I did look at him and just think. The 80s were a different time where a guy like that could get a lead role.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? He really winged it. He's certainly not Hollywood. He hasn't got the look.
No.
What I kept feeling with this film, that it was far more interested in being weird than being scary.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Yeah, there were scenes where I was just like, and when it tried to be scary, it used the most hackneyed genre tropes in history. Like I said, the claw on the thing, or
the jump scare coming through the window and pulling.
Yeah, it was
the dog. The dog come out. Quite a jump scare.
Yeah,
to be fair.
But on the whole, I was kind of disappointed that it went down that way. But you don't know. It was interesting reading some reviews, particularly that Time Out review, that was so praiseworthy about how it subverted what was then the norm. But now it just looks like a sort of hackney. I mean, it was. I did enjoy this. I will be honest. Watching it, apparently Joe Dante was hired off the strength of this to direct Gremlins. According to the internet, which is not massively reliable, but that sounds quite plausible. But he has had a really, really great career. I mean, you forget, but he made some of the best films that I saw when I was a kid. Like, he made Inner Space, Gremlins, obviously, Explorers, which is fucking crazily underrated. Matinee, again, which is underrated.
I've never seen Matinee.
It's a terrific film, yeah. Really terrific. And he made that film The Hole a few years ago.
The Hole was great.
Was it? Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I really enjoyed The Hole.
Yeah.
It's a great 15 rated creature feature. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I need to. But he has had a really terrific career when you look back. And one thing that I do like about this film is that the bits of business that it has to sort of, when it's telling this story about it's kind of leading into the fact that it's a werewolf story, are really effective. There's a scene where it just jumps. There's a flash cut of Dee Wallace's when she had this encounter with the serial killer, and she throws off. It cuts immediately to her throwing off her husband, saying, "I'm not ready to be intimate right now," and that's over in 20 seconds. Similarly, after her husband has been struck by the werewolf, there's a scene, and it lasts about 20 seconds where he's, and then like, I thought you didn't eat meat, and he's at I'll eat anything. But it was funny, but it was done in 20 seconds.
That cracked me up.
It made me laugh as well. But rather than drag it out and like, oh shit, he doesn't want to, and his wife saying, oh, it's just done and dusted, and then there's the rest of the story gets on. It's really economical with the story elements that you expect, and the rest of it's kind of, it is not really a werewolf movie. It is one of those things where you go somewhere and it's not quite
it's the weird inner circle, the weird locals.
Right. That's it.
What really made me laugh is Dee Wallace's transformation at the end. Is the fact that she turns into a sexy Shih Tzu.
It's not a full transformation. So it cuts away and then she's just like with her contact lens. That's true.
I would.
Yeah, that was probably my favourite part of the movie, when this big dramatic beat is that she, in order to prove that there is werewolves in this world, she goes back to her job as a newscaster and she transforms live on TV, and it cuts back to people watching it like.
Well, they're watching it in the bar, aren't they?
Yeah, they're watching it in the bar, and then there's those kids going, "What? Oh yeah, Mum, she turned into a werewolf." That's really funny. That really landed.
Well, it's good. It's subversive.
Yeah, but I think the Howling. I mean, we haven't talked about American Werewolf yet, but as a comedy, I was like, this really fucking lands as a comedy. There was some, and especially her boss. I've forgotten his name. The actor.
What's his name? Kevin McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy. Yeah, he's such a horrific. That one joke where
sexist comment. He goes, if I had done it, I'd have done it better.
No, but when she comes back traumatised after that serial killer encounter, they have to change the newscast and she has to get off the news. She's like, she's probably pregnant. There are some really, really effective. It's co-written by John Sayles, which I'd say I can't believe, but he also wrote Piranha. He's this esteemed indie filmmaker. One of the most esteemed ever. And he has this. It is. I mean, that's the thing that I think is most impressive about this is it is genuinely still very, very funny. And for a film that's not, to my knowledge, because we don't really know much about The Howling. The Howling's not discussed. I wasn't expecting laughs, and it delivered the laughs. And I was engaged. It was an enjoyable piece of trash. But again, it has that Roger Corman thing of 45 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour of setup, and then it doesn't quite deliver when it's supposed to go.
It's like a really good Twilight Zone episode.
That's true, but stretched out. But seeing all those great American character actors, and the way it was, the way the story was told was actually very, very effective. And it's not a great film, but I can understand why it has a cult film.
Yeah, it's hokey as hell, but it moves at a good pace. I wasn't bored at all.
Yeah, true that. Okay, well, I mean, that's I enjoyed it. Not a great film, but it's all right.
Yes. So on to our next film, which is American Werewolf in London, directed by John Landis. Two American students, David and Jack, are on a tour of Europe, are attacked while walking the Yorkshire moors. One survives and one is brought to London, where shortly after, Cockneys are meeting grisly ends. American Werewolf in London.
This is the story of two young American students traveling through England on a night of the full moon. Fate let one live.
That lunatic must have been a very fierce fellow.
Wasn't a lunatic.
What?
An American Werewolf in London. Something different.
So, American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
What do you think? Have you seen it before?
I've seen it. I've seen it many times. I saw it throughout my childhood because my parents were very weird about films when I was a kid. They'd let me watch things like this. They'd let me watch Police Academy, but things like Highlander and Time Bandits. Weird enough, they're like, "You're not watching that." I don't know why this was acceptable and those weren't. It doesn't make any sense at all. But I've seen it many times, and it's that one of the earliest things that I remember laughing at was one of the earliest lines when. He's in the hospital, and then his dead friend comes up and says, "Can I have a piece of toast?" I remember absolutely cracking up at that. American Werewolf in London has not aged brilliantly, just because I think it's not. I think it's less of a comedy than The Howling is, just because The Howling is like gag, and that American Werewolf in London has that kind of. It's more amiable goofing rather than actual jokes. I think the exception to that is the scene in the porno theatre, which is hilarious. Like the interplay between the characters in that is really, really funny, and there are genuinely really good jokes in it. But as a horror comedy, I think The Howling, in a weird way, is kind of fits the bill more than American Werewolf in London does.
Well, I feel. I mean, my background with American Werewolf in London is I saw it once when I was really young.
Scared you?
11, 12. I didn't get it was funny. It scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And I really remember vividly the first kill in the moors and the blood and how real those slash marks looked on the friend. I really enjoyed it because it was like watching it fresh for me, and I didn't get any of the gags while watching it when I was 11 at all. I'd completely forgotten about the home invasion Nazi scene, which I was like, that is fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
And I had no recollection of that at all. The makeup is fantastic. I mean,
when he's that scene that I mentioned where Griffin Dunn's there talking to him and his neck's basically hanging out, it's like the makeup. It is amazing. Still, no, you wouldn't get.
This is like trachea and his windpipe. You got so much detail on it.
You could. I defy you to find better makeup than that, even in the present day. It still looks stunning. Absolutely stunning.
I had no recollection of how camp it was. The Scotland Yard detectives rock up. That whole scene with those two, the really inept Scotland Yard detective who keep doing this physical comedy. I mean, I was cracking up. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
The weird thing about this, I don't think I've ever done this with a film that I've seen as a kid and rewatched as an adult, is the ending. I had a completely different expectation of that ending. In my head, obviously this is a jumbled up recollection, is that I thought he woke up in the hospital and it was all a dream. So I was waiting for this to happen. The whole porno cinema, the porn cinema with all of the previous victims, I didn't remember that. I didn't remember the big car crash at the end in central London with the head rolling off. Didn't remember any of that. I felt that I didn't watch the entire film.
Is that just because he spent so much time in a hosptal bed that you thought it was all a dream?
That's all. My recollection was that he woke up and the nurse goes, "Oh, it was all a dream," like that. So I was expecting to have that really cliched payoff. And obviously that's not what happened. Yeah. And I looked at reviews, and a lot of people cite that they really didn't like the end of An American Werewolf in London. I think it is the perfect ending. I mean, where do you go after that?
No, it does come completely out of nowhere. I mean, every review I've read and... when you hear people talking about that ending, they say that it's abrupt, it comes out of nowhere, but it is perfect. It's like, well, I mean, the story's over, that's the end. I don't have a problem with how abruptly it ends at all. What I think's really interesting about this film is that John Landis appears to have been inducted into that sort of cachet of being one of the masters of horror. He even directed some of those episodes of that TV show,
Masters of Horror.
Yeah. And whenever there's a documentary about that golden age of horror with like Tobe Hooper and George Romero and Wes Craven, John Landis is always there.
I think it's because he's a very engaging. He's very engaging as an interviewee. So I think that's a lot of the reason why he gets the call up.
And he loves those films. I mean, when you hear him talking about seeing like Night of the Living Dead for the first time, he's very engaging. But it's so strange that he's been inducted into that world. And his only... I mean, he directed one of the episodes of the Twilight Zone film. But it's basically this. And I think it's because this really is an effective horror film. I know that I saw this a lot when I was a kid. And I must have watched it repeatedly, knowing when to shut my eyes, because there's the bit where there's a bed in the middle of the forest and he wakes up. I remember that terrifying me as a kid. The home invasion scene where there's those, as you mentioned earlier on. I remember that terrifying me as a kid, and I must have just got to a certain point where I knew when to shut my eyes, because there's so many memories I have of being so scared by this film. And like you said, that was a really strong bit.
What I think it does really well, and it's really difficult to do with horror, is have that mix of genuine horror and comedy.
Comedy, yeah.
I mean, the slaughtered lamb scene it's really effective.
Yeah.
The one scene in the whole film that I thought was dud is with the doctor going back to the slaughtered lamb. I think that was a real point. It was a real flat scene for me, that he travels all the way back to the Yorkshire Moors from London and goes into the pub, which has it's got Brian Glover playing chess. It has the guy, the one villager that was kind of breaks cover and tells him exactly what's happening, admits that it wasn't a serial killer out on the moors. Yeah. That scene felt really flat, and it just echoed how good it was the first time round at the beginning of the film. Yeah. It just felt like there was no tension in that scene. You know what I mean?
And would a doctor go all the way to try? Would the doctor suddenly
and it just felt like a bit socially awkward. Yeah. That he was they thought he was a lawyer, and he was the posh toff from London going into their country pub. Yeah. That just felt really flat for me. But the rest of it moved at a really good pace. Did you notice? Did you?
Yeah, I know what you're going to say. Bricktop. Yeah, Bricktop driving a cab. He doesn't show his face. No. But his line, Alan Ford, is it?
Yeah.
His line delivery, you can't mistake it.
No.
Oh my God. His line delivery is impeccable. Yeah, Bricktop. I think he sort of fleetingly turns his head round, but yeah, I mean, you can't mistake Bricktop once you know who he is. But yeah, if I was going to try and highlight the best thing about the film to me, it's a scene that I remember. Again, it's another scene that I remember terrifying me as a kid. And when I was talking about the film with my friends in school, I was like, "That's the bit that really
subway sequence."
The subway sequence, and that is a perfect horror scene because if you haven't seen it, there's a guy who's being stalked by the werewolf in a completely empty. I think it was Tottenham Court Road.
It's Tottenham Court Road.
Yeah.
But it's that first-person camera,
and it's locked behind him, so you can't see what he's doing. He keeps turning around, so I'm going to report this to the authorities and all that stuff. And it builds to a point where it cuts to this brilliant wide shot at the top of the escalator as he's kind of sort of semi-consciously trying to scramble, and you see just the that's classic, absolutely perfect.
It's a wonderful segment.
And
it's one of the ones I remember the first kill on the moors and the subway sequence, and it's done so well. It's executed superbly.
It is. I mean, and if that is what caused John Landis to be sort of celebrated as a horror filmmaker, I can't argue with that, because I was really just like, this this is so well done, so well done.
You pinch your chair for the entire duration of that sequence.
Completely. I suppose another thing about the film that I found weird is that you can't really tell, because it's so old, whether something was just badly done at the time or whether it's badly done because, you know, filmmaking has progressed. But the seduction scene when he refuses to eat food and she says you must eat food and she starts spoon feeding him and they're locking eyes and you're like, this is terrible, this is like the worst kind of soap opera nonsense. But you know, again, I read a lot of reviews written at the time and nobody pointed that out, so I suppose that is just cinema having progressed. But I was watching that just thinking, this is the hammiest shit. And similarly the shower scene between them where they're both naked,
well, she's kissing his shoulder in the road. I mean,
biting
I don't
him
buy into that.
yeah. She's biting him like she's having an orgasm.
Yeah.
Like, is this what people thought?
This is racy.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, there are elements to it that have dated quite severely, but I think that the good things definitely outweigh.
Yeah, and talking of good things, I thought the use of music was fantastic.
True.
He absolutely nailed using as many moon reference tracks.
True.
Blue Moon, Bad Moon Rising, Moon Dance, really effectively. Brilliant.
Yeah, no, I mean it still works as a film, and I remember that sequence at the end when there's chaos in
Leicester Square.
Leicester Square. It's so savage.
Yeah.
Like it's people just getting people getting killed or left and right. It's a montage of people getting killed. I was like, I don't remember this being this fucking fun.
No. I mean that whole sequence, I had no recollection of it whatsoever, and he's choreographed that so well. I mean, and Landis loves having a big crescendo of car crashing, you know, Blues Brothers. He loves that.
Yeah, no doubt.
And he nails it. He does it really well.
But it was just, even now, it was shocking. I was like, whoa, you know, there's like people getting just completely flattened by cars. Someone goes flying out.
Pinned up against a car, go through the window.
I think that's John Landis. When the car swerves and pins someone against a shop. I'm pretty sure that's him, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is still a really enjoyable, really effective film, I think.
This was a real treat. I was really looking forward to this, and it delivered in spades.
Yeah. I think it's probably John Landis. I mean, I've got a real soft spot for the Blues Brothers. Coming to America is aged relatively well, I think.
Coming to America is still solid.
But I think this is probably the best film that he made. It's disappointing that he basically tried to remake it. Have you seen Innocent Blood?
No.
I mean, thinking about it, I don't know if anyone at any point thought that was going to be a comedy of any kind.
Oh, shit.
Hello, we're just cutting in here because this is 4 weeks or so after we recorded this episode, and the audio cut out because we had very, very bad equipment, so the end of the show is... no longer exists. I can't remember what else we talked about, but I can remember that we were pretty unanimous in which film was better.
American Werewolf in London.
American Werewolf in London, yeah, it was pretty much a unanimous thing. Although the Howling has its pleasures, it was no contest. So yeah, that's the end of that episode. Sorry, hopefully that doesn't happen again. I'm sure it won't. Thanks for listening. Check us out on Twitter, CFFO, on YouTube. Send us any suggestions or anything like that to cultfilmfaceoff at Yahoo gmail.com. And thank you for listening.
God bless.
Cult Film Face-Off.
Can I have a piece of toast?